we all can agree on the fact that trust is the foundation of every human relationship. And so in our walk of learning how to love ourselves, self-trust is also crucially important. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 signs that you do not really trust yourself. So before we go ahead and jump right in, my name is Ense. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section. Let us know where you're watching from. Without much ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And point number 1 is that you find it difficult to acknowledge your own wants and feelings. Do you find that you are not respecting your wants and your own feelings, and you are sometimes putting the feelings of others before yours? Does that sound familiar to you? Sometimes you find it so difficult to validate your own feelings. But I'm here today to tell you that your feelings matter and your feelings are important. To trust yourself, it's so important that you acknowledge your own feelings. If you had a friend who all the time they're trying to share with you how they feel, you disregard how they feel, you're not paying attention to how they feel, but you're more worried about what some other person feels, you wouldn't feel okay with that. This happens for a lot of reasons. 1, because maybe you don't love yourself. 2, you don't think you matter. And 3, because there's this desire, I have to do X, Y, Z. I have to act this way to make people love and accept me. If you don't value yourself, if you don't trust yourself, it's going to be very hard to fall in love with someone you cannot rely on and someone you cannot trust. This leads me right away into point number 2. And point number 2 is that you don't allow yourself to process your own feelings. Majority of us were brought up not knowing or not being even taught how to process our feelings, how to allow our feelings to be. And so it becomes so hard for us to actually sit down and process, how am I feeling and why am I feeling this at this moment? Or because of the fear that we might get stuck if we allow this big emotion show, we might get stuck in that rabbit hole and not be able to come out. But it's so important for us to be able to sit down and process our feelings with ourselves. And if needed, it's so important for you to get an expert to assist you with this. This leads me right away into point number 3. And point number 3 is that we often second guess ourselves. That's one sign that you don't trust yourself, if you're constantly second guessing yourself. You make a decision, you change the decision. You make a decision, you feel uneasy about it. Sometimes we're not even sure how we're going to feel or what we're going to do to ourselves, how we're going to torture and brutalize ourselves if this decision that we made is wrong. We don't know if we're going to pick ourselves up lovingly and tend to ourselves, or if we're going to kick ourselves. And oftentimes, our mind doesn't even help situations. Our mind jumps in to protect us and to rescue us, telling us, last time you did this, remember, we were stuck in a rut. We couldn't leave the house for 2 weeks. So I don't think you should making this decision. So you sit down, second guessing yourself. Should I not? It's time that we begin to trust ourselves. If you would like to learn how to begin to trust and fall in love with yourself, type in the comments and let me know that you would like to learn how to trust yourself, and I can do a separate video on that. And that leads me right away into point number 3. And point number 3 is that we do not value ourselves. We discount our value. So we discount the value that we bring to our jobs, to our businesses, to relationships. We don't really believe and acknowledge that we have something to give. We don't really believe that we have value to give to the world. We don't really believe that we are worthy of what we have. And a lot of times we are bigger than we give ourselves credit for. And this is very prevalent among people who are perfectionists. I am a recovering perfectionist, so I know what this feels like when you never feel that what you're doing is good enough. And so even when it comes to charging your worth, you downplay yourself. You give the stuff out free. You don't charge your worth. At work, you're putting in more. You're bringing value, but you don't seem to think that you are worthy of being paid what you're worth. That's another sign that you probably are struggling with self-trust. And that leads me right away to point number 4. We beat ourselves up over so many mistakes. We sit down, we park, actually literally park our car by the mistake booth that we have made, and we spend time agonizing over it. I'm not saying that we begin to rejoice over mistakes or we pat ourselves and say, good job for making a mistake. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that even if you make a mistake, that mistake does not diminish your worth. That mistake does not diminish your value. You are still valuable. What you can do is ask yourself a few questions. What can I learn from this? What do I need to improve? This has obviously brought to my attention that I still need to make improvements in XYZ area. What areas do I need to up-level my game? What areas do I need to improve? That in no way diminishes your worth. That leads me to the next point, which is point number 5. When you try so hard to control everything, you try so hard to make things work a certain way. You want things to always be this way because it makes you feel good. Let me use an illustration. You're having a presentation or an interview, or you want to do a video just like going live. You want everything to be perfect. You want to say all the right words. You want to look the right way. And there's nothing wrong with all that. But when that is the only thing holding you from what your life should be, you don't trust that you're going to be nice to yourself should things not work out the way you want it to work out. You're trying to make sure that you control how everybody feels about this circumstance and presentation. Hasn't it ever happened that you did your best? You showed up your best, and that was the best that you did, and someone still has something to complain? We cannot control anybody else but ourselves. When we try too much to control the outcome, it's a sign that we don't trust ourselves. That leads me to ask this question that I invite you to ponder. Raise your hands if you are waiting to make sure that all conditions are perfect before you start that project, before you go apply for that job, before you start that new business, before you start anything. Are you still waiting for everything to be perfect? Or are you able to take the leap of faith and trust yourself that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone? I'm going to either fly, or if I fall, I'll learn. That's what self-trust would do for you. The last point here is when we believe that other people's opinion about us is more important than how we feel about ourselves. Sometimes there's a tendency for you to value how they feel about you more than your own values in your own core. When you do that, it's a sign that you don't trust yourself, that you don't trust your own value, you don't trust your own opinion. You're waiting for approval from outside. And we know how that goes. That is shaky. But that validation and that approval that you're needing from outside, from external, from outside yourself, you can give it to yourself. And that is more grounding. That is more settled. That is more secure. To love yourself is to trust yourself. So which of these points resonated with you today? And which of these points did you find yourself often struggle with? I'd like to know in the comments below. If you like this video, I invite you to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and share this content with somebody who you know would really benefit from it. Because I am committed to bring you juicy, quality content Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And until we see again, it's goodbye.